Devarim. So we're starting Devarim, chapter 1, verse 1. These are the Devarim, these are the words. Asher Diber Moshe al Kol Yisrael be'Ever Yarden, and Moshe spoke to all of Israel on the other side of the Jordan, the Midbar, in the wilderness, Baravah, in the plains. Now, Mul Suf, opposite to Suf, we don't know exactly what that means. Bein Paranu, Bein Tofel, we don't know where that is. The Lavan v'Chatzirot, we don't know where that is. And Bizahav. Rashi, in the commentary, the bottom high, we don't know where any of these places are. What's it referring to? Says the Rashi, Elad Varim. All right, I want to mention, hello, Rabbi Yosef. Geschmack that you're here. All right. Well, you're looking sharp. And so, Rabbi Yosef is here with us in person. I want to mention that tomorrow night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night, I can't do the Rashi study. So Wednesday night there's somebody sitting Shiva, and Monday night and Tuesday night I'm going to be out of town and traveling. So I just wanted everybody to know that. Okay, yeah, you want a chumash? It's over there. Is the chumash? What? Yeah, probably not. To the left, to the left, to the left. Keep going. Keep going to the left. Keep going to the left. A little bit more. Oh yeah, you can use that if you want. But the chumashim are to the left. One more to the left. Right there, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so Rashi says, Elad Varim. Rashi says, Lafishaim Divrei Tochachot. These are words of rebuke. Manakan Kol Mikomot Shechisu Ifnei Amakom Bahan. Moshe is going to rebuke all the places where the Bnei Yisrael caused Hashem to be upset. Afikach sasam es hadvarim v'izkiram b'remes b'bnei kvoden shal Yisrael. So Moshe concealed his words in order to give honor to the Jewish people. So what Rashi is saying is, what are all these places? These places are allusions to other places where Bnei Yisrael sinned. But Moshe did not want to say them directly because he's rebuking the people. And so therefore, he rebuked them in a manner to protect their honor, because he was worried about their honor. We see from here that if this is the way Moshe rebuked the Bnei Yisrael, we learn from here that if you ever have to give rebuke, you have to do it in a way that is indirect. It's an indirect form of rebuke. Because if it's a direct form of rebuke, God forbid, you might not respect their honor. Now today, even though it's a mitzvah in the Torah to give rebuke, you have to know how to give rebuke. Since most of us don't know how to give rebuke, better off not to give it than to violate many prohibitions by giving the rebuke in the wrong manner. That's what we can learn from this first Rashi. So we're in Devarim, chapter 1, verse 1. Okay. Doing okay, Moshe? Yeah. Okay. Ezra, you doing okay? Baruch Hashem. So, these are the words which Moshe spoke of. Kol Yisrael. He rebuked. Oh, yes. Jerry, please ask your question. Yeah. We're on page 947. Yes, Jerry, what's your question? I think I can't hear you, Jerry.
Okay, all right, fine. Here we go. Our Bible, the Hebrew Bible, is supposed to be God's message to the Jewish people. Why are we spending one full book of the 5 books of Moses? This is Moses speaking to the Jewish people. It isn't God's commandments to the Jewish people. Why is this included in the Tanakh or in the Chumash?
But that's an excellent question. So Jerry's asking the question, if this was not said at Sinai, this was not part of God's words. These are Moshe's speech. But we have to say that Moshe gave the speech because God told him to give this speech. God put the words in Moshe's mouth. But it is a difficult answer because it seems to fly in the direct face of the text. Because it says these are the words that Moshe spoke. So in the second answer is Moshe was the greatest prophet that ever was. There'll never be another prophet as great as Moshe. He spoke to God face to face. And God passed over Moshe so Moshe could see his back. So when Moshe speaks, even if we say Devarim is not necessarily, and I'm not saying that, but even if you want to adopt approach that Devarim is not as holy or is not the same level of prophecy as the other books of the Torah, it's still much higher than any other book. So therefore be included. But Moshe is the greatest prophet of all. Rashi doesn't address this question, so I don't have an answer for you other than what I was just thinking now. Maybe Rabbi Yosef has an answer.
In terms of the Ramban has a Hakdama saying that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke about things that were specific for going into the land. The previous three books, it wasn't relevant yet, so like that's his explanation, but he's not answering that specific question. But I guess that's also a way of.
There's also like why exactly, and there's also why are there contradictions between this book and the previous books? And there are some additions. There's additions that are not in the previous books. Yeah, these are interesting points and requires a very intense study. Well, we are doing Rashi, so I'm not prepared to answer those other questions. Well, Rashi says, okay, Jerry, I hope you heard our answer. And
yes, thank you.
Okay, sure. So he spoke I'll call Yisroel. So Rashi says, if he had rebuked a portion of them, then those in the market would say, you heard it from Ben Amram. And he didn't respond at all. He didn't respond at all. But if we were there, we would have answered him. That's why Moshe gathered all of them and said, Moshe brought all of them there and said, okay, you're all here. Whoever has a response, let him speak. Basically, Moshe wanted everyone to be there. Oh, guy. Okay, so now, Bamidbar. First place he spoke to them was in the other side of the Jordan, in the Midbar, in the wilderness. Rashi says they were not in the Midbar. Elbar Vot Moab. The Midbar, what's the Midbar? They weren't in the Midbar, but they were in the plains of Moab. The Midbar is a specific location, and the plains of Moab are a specific location, but he wasn't there. Midbar, what is it meant by in the wilderness? Ella Bishvil Ma Sheyichisul Bamidbar. But rather Moshe rebuked them because of that which they had angered him in the wilderness. When they said, if mi umutenu Bamidbar, if only we would have died in the wilderness. If only we would die by the hands of Hashem in the land of Egypt. Kishe achalnu es abasar. Kishe yashavnu. Kishe achalnu es alachem wasobna. And we sat by the by the flesh spots, and we ate the bread and were satisfied. So Moshe was rebuking them about their complaint when they were in the wilderness and said, if only we would have died in Egypt. Says the Rashi, Ba'arava, they weren't in the plains, but B'shvil Arava. Do you know what page we're on, Guy? What page are we on? 947. B'shvil Arava. What was the sin they did by the plains? They sinned with the sin of Baal Peor. They sinned with the sin of Baal Peor. B'shittim, what does it mean? Shittim Barvot Moab, in the plains of Moab. Mol Suf, what does that mean? Alma Shehimru B'Yam Suf. It's about the rebellion that they made at the Yam Suf. Hold on. This is the rebellion they made at the Yam Suf, B'Voam Yam Suf, when they came to the Yam Suf. What was their sin there? They said, were there no graves in Egypt that you brought us to die here in the Midbar? When they traveled out from the sea, as it states, Vayimaru al Yam B'Yam Suf. They rebelled at the Sea of Reeds, as it states in Erechim. Bein Paranu Bein Tofel Lavan. What is that? Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. So this is what I was saying Rashi was motivated by. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said, Chazar. Now, of course, the people who are looking to challenge the authenticity of the Masoretic text will say, what's going on here? So they say, Chazarnu al kol mikra v'lo matzinu makom sheshmo tofel lavan. We went through the whole verse and we didn't find a single place whose name was Tofel v'Lavan. So rather, Moshe rebuked them for those words with which they slandered the man. Haflu means smearing. Yeah. That which they did. Oh, Mordechai, how you doing? Amazing. That which they did Midbar Paran al through the spies. V'chatze wrote, what does it mean? So basically, there's no place. That's the problem here. All these places, there's no place that it's referring to. So therefore, Rashi is introducing it that way. If you look at some of the other commentaries, they don't take this approach, but this is Rashi's approach. V'chatze wrote, what's Chatze wrote? B'macharuto shel Korach. At the dispute of Korach. That was a Chatze wrote, because meaning to say, the Bnei Yisrael were camped at Chatzerot before they went to Midbar Paran. Davar Acher, alternatively, Moshe said, "Hayalchem l'mod mima she'asisi l'Miriam b'chatzerot b'shvil lashon hara v'atem nidbartem b'makom." You should have learned from the way I punished Miriam for what she was punished at Chatzerot. And you should have learned from there not to speak Lashon Hara. And yet you spoke against God. V'di zahav, Rashi says, Hochichana ha'egel sha'asu. He's rebuking them for the calf, the golden calf. It's like, is somebody upstairs? I hear this banging. No, it's okay. Don't have to check it. Oh, Hugh's here. Okay. Bishvil rov zahav, because of the abundance of gold. As it states, "V'kesef herbei sila v'zahav asu abal." So basically, when the time Rashi is done with this, Rashi has basically said that this verse is referring to some of the major sins that the Jewish people made. The sin of the golden calf, the sin of the spies, the sin of the sin of Miriam, the sin of Korach, the sin of complaining at the Yam Suf, the sin of with the Midianite women in the plains of Moab, and the sin of complaining about the man. So Moshe has combined basically the greatest hits, and he's rebuking them for all their sins. He's rebuking them for their sins. So that's how Rashi, you read this pasuk without Rashi, and it just starts off like an innocuous verse. These are the words that Moshe spoke to them in this place. Rashi does not read it that way at all. Rashi says this is a lesson in how to rebuke people. And then he tells us, Achad Asar Yom, where did Moshe speak to them? And this was right before they went into the land of Canaan. It was only an 11-day journey from Chorev, Derech Har Seir, by the plains of Seir at Kadesh Barnea. So the whole trip, the 40 years in the wilderness, they were 11 days away from entering. They didn't need to wander for 40 years because they didn't know where to go. They wandered for 40 years because they weren't ready to go in. It was just an 11-day journey. Rashi says exactly this point. That Amar at Moshe says to them, look what you caused. There's no shorter path. Hold on 1 second. Moshe says to Korach, there's no shorter path. This is Moshe says to Israel. There's no shorter path from Chorev to Kadesh Barnea than the route of Mount Seir. And that's a journey of 11 days. Yet you went, you did it in 3 days. Because it says, on the 20th of Iyar they traveled. And then it says, and then it says, and then it says, and it was on the 20th of the second month, and then on the 29th of Sivan, so on the 29th of Sivan, they sent the spies from Kadesh Barnea. Same Shoshim Yom, deduct 30 days. We know that they spent 30 days at Kivrei Ta'ava, because they ate the meat there for a month. And then 7 days, where they spent a Chatzerot, because Miriam was being closed up there with Sager Sham Miriam. Nimsa so they did this 11-day journey in 3 days. And the divine presence was trying to bring you so quickly into the land. Because you sinned with the spies, meaning to say, you could have been in the land of Israel. You did it. You could have been there in just 3 days, but because you sinned with the spies, it took you 40 years. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. All right. Okay. Vahibar Ba'im Shana was in the 40th year, Vashte Asar Chodesh, in the 11th month, Ve'achad Chodesh, on the first day of the month, Diber Moshe al Bnei Israel, Moshe spoke to the children of Israel, like everything that God had commanded him to them. So it was in the 40th year, in the 11th month, on the first day of the month. What's the 11th month? This is the first day of Shvat. So Moshe's speech is going to be how long in the end? He's going to die on the 7th of Adar, so it's going to be 37. Well, Shvat. So then 30 and then 7. He died on the 7th of Adar. But there's another version we saw. Remember we saw this that in Rashi that some say Moshe died on the 7th day of Shvat. Did you see that? Remember that?
Tradition is based on
Chaim,
10th of Nisan, and it was after 3 days. They entered the land after 3 days of preparation.
yeah.
So that's 33 days less than 10th of Nisan is 7th of Adar.
Hold on. Yeah, I know, but there's another sefer. Rav Chaim Kanievsky quotes a midrash that says there's another version about when he died. I'm trying to even find it.
Did bring computer.
No, there's two versions, two possible dates. Okay, but I can't find it. Okay. Okay, so what happens now? So we say from here, Moshe only rebuked them right before he died. Mimila, who did he learn this from? From Jacob. Jacob only rebuked his sons right before he died. Amar, he said, Ruvain b'ni, my son Ruvain, ani omer lecha, mipnei ma lo chachticha kol hashanim halolu. He said, Jacob said, Ruvain, why don't I rebuke you all the days of my life, so that you should not leave me and go and go join up with Esav. So basically, you were only supposed to rebuke the person right before you die. Send them off. When you go to die, then he can't do anything to you. So there are 4 reasons that we don't rebuke a person unless we're about to die. You got to get the last word in. 1, you don't want to rebuke him for the same thing twice. Number 2, we don't want you don't want him to be embarrassed every time he sees you from then on. And anyway, those are only 2 of the reasons. He doesn't give the other 2. Number 3 is so that he shouldn't hold a grudge against you. And number 4, so that he should be on peaceful terms before leaving. So those are the 4 reasons. So those are the 4 things. Hold on. Mechota, what does it say? You see? I remember that. Zayin Shvat. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's stop our recording here. We'll stop here. We'll stop for today. Just a reminder, we're not going to be meeting for